My name is Nick, and I'm on the Vancouver Startup Week team. First and foremost, I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge that we are grateful to be virtually gathered here on Indigenous land, regardless of where you're joining us from. I am grateful today to be joining from the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. Unceded means these territories were never handed over, sold, or given up by these nations. And currently we are situated on occupied territories. Next, being said, I would like to thank everyone for joining us here today for Vancouver Startup Week 2021, and welcome to the session today with Sherwa Online Services from 0 to 500,000 users, growing a gaming social platform during COVID. This session is part of the Vancouver Startup Week Founder Track and is proudly supported by Sage Accounting. Sage knows you didn't start your business to become an accountant. Sorry to any accountants here. Sage Accounting keeps your business organized and running smoothly. Track your cash flow, send out invoices, and get paid quickly. Visit the Sage Accounting booth to access free guides and templates for starting your business finances the right way. Plus, get an exclusive Vancouver Startup Week discount if you're ready to switch from Excel. During the session, if any of our attendees have any questions for the speakers, do not hesitate to post them in the Q&A tab on the Whova session. And if you see any questions that you think are particularly relevant or interesting, feel free to upvote them. I'll now pass the mic over to Louise and Pedro from Sherwa, and we will begin.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the great intro. Really happy to be here. This Vancouver. I really enjoyed the previous Vancouver Startup Weeks when they were, I guess, in person, but now it's the first time I participate online, so I'm pretty excited. Pretty cool to be, I guess, talking about Sherwa, but not just Sherwa. I think the main topic that we want to discuss here is the strategy that we used and kind of how we pivoted along the way since we started from 0 users basically to almost, I think we just went through 500,000, right, Pedro? 500,000 downloads the other day. So. Yes. Yeah, so it's been an very interesting 9 months. It's obviously been more than that because we started working on this project about 2 years ago. I will ask Pedro if you can you pull the slides, Pedro, so we can kind of flip through. I don't think we're gonna be reading the slides. It's mostly gonna be a service guidance. But thanks, Pedro, for working on these slides, and it's great. It's a great final product for sure. I will start with a quick intro on Sherwa and ourselves. Obviously, the panel is 0 to 500,000 downloads during COVID. A little bit of a backstory. Sherwa was founded about 2 years ago. I'd say the company was incorporated in July 2019, but the idea really first arose in our minds in 2018, end of 2018, December. We are 3 main partners, myself, Luis, I'm the CEO, Pedro is our CMO, and we have another partner who's typically more on the shy side, who's the technical guy. He's the COO, who's Andre. And we were friends before, and we got together with, I'd say, I don't want to say dream, but at least with a vision of creating a product utilizing the latest technologies that we have available today to connect gamers, or at least give gamers a more meaningful experience online than just the random kind of matchmaking or people they don't necessarily like that they find online. So that was kind of what drove us in the beginning. Very quick on Sherwa. We connect one-to-one with someone to play games with. That's as simple as that. We also do groups or parties, or we also offer you the opportunity to play with your favorite influencer or streamer, all instantly through touch of one button through your phones. Reason why we are on mobile, obviously, is there's a lot of growth in that space, number one. And number two, everyone has a phone. You might play on PC or console sometimes, but you still have a phone with you most of the time. So that is the majority of the reason why we chose. And our vision was, as I think I shared a little bit of that, but our vision was to become a safe haven where gamers can connect, find help, and monetize their playtime. And with the mission of helping gamers make the most out of their playtime, by creating the best experience in finding and offering help, guidance, and services within any game, any platform, anytime. So that is kind of where we start. I don't know, Pedro, do you want to add anything to that beginning, or should I just keep
No, I think
moving?
it's a good preamble, and I think it kicks us off on what we do. And I just wanted to share as well some numbers that we have as recently, our most recent numbers, because I think it kind of helps you guys understand where we are right now before we start talking about how we got here. So we launched our beta in August 2020, as Louis mentioned. We've been the company was incorporated July 2019, so it was about a year until we got our beta product. And from August 2020 to today, we've got 504,000 downloads, 384,000 registered users, 1.3 million connection requests, 65,000 parties created in the app. We have an average of 3,000 daily active users, and 95% of our users are in Brazil. There's a very specific reason for that, and we'll get to that in a second, because it's a crucial part of what we do. In our platform, the most popular games are Fortnite and Free Fire. We've had over half of the connection requests were for those two games, and over 75,000 of the users have either game on their libraries. And just to finalize, we currently have a 4.5 or a 5-star rating on Google Play and iOS.
Okay, I think that's a great segue, Pedro. Thanks for that. When we look at the profile of our users, demographics, but also geography, you guys are talking from Vancouver, but you have 95% of users in Brazil. What's going on there? Well, I think that really kind of talks a lot to what we want to discuss today, which is, I was discussing with Pedro before we joined, as we were producing this presentation. And I think the main idea that we want to convey here is that you realize your advantages and your strengths very early on, so you can get your product out there as fast as possible, so you can make mistakes as fast as possible, so you learn from those mistakes and then advance towards the market where you can get a bigger prize. So our thought was, yes, from a monetization perspective, developed markets are our goal, and that's exactly where we want to be very soon. But with a product in development, you don't have the luxury of spending, every extra dollar into something that you're not necessarily certain is going to make a return right away. So our thought was, okay, where can get the biggest bang for the buck? Pedro has a background in gaming influencers, mostly a lot of it in Brazil. We also have partners and advisors in the company. There are large YouTuber influencers that we brought together to the company that are Brazilians as well. And we thought, okay, let's just take that and use that in our advantage, so we can get the biggest bang for the buck in the beginning, meaning we're going to make a lot of mistakes and we're going to spend money. It's not a waste, obviously, because you're learning, but we're going to spend money to learn. And why not do that in a market that is much cheaper to acquire users? The users play basically the same set of games that any user anywhere else. They're much cheaper to acquire. And then we develop the product from that perspective. Once the product is more mature, we advance to a more, I guess, developed market. So that was the strategy from the get-go. Is
I think it's important to mention is that it always starts from before that, right? We had the idea, we decided to pursue it, and then what is the first thing you do? Is the first thing we did, at least, was, well, let's see who should be involved as the founders team for the company, right? And our strategy, I think, is very that was successful, and I think is something I always like to mention, because it provided a foundation for what came after that. So we have Luis, who is has a background in the corporate world, was treasurer for many years, got up to CFO of international companies. So he has all that knowledge in business and finance that so often startups lack, right? So we have this person who is perfectly to make sure we are set up for success on the business side, which is something that is so often overlooked by people founding their companies. And then we have Andre, who is the technical partner. He obviously has several years of experience on game development. He can create this product. So we have Luis, who can manage the product. We have Andre, who can create the product. And then they brought me along, who I have a background in marketing, have a lot of experience with influencer marketing, and especially specifically with gaming. So we now, with a founder team of 3, we covered all of our bases, right? We have someone to develop, someone to manage, and someone to promote the product. And it really starts from there, where we don't. Andre, who is not an expert in marketing, who his expertise is building the product, doesn't have to waste time learning how to manage a business. At the same time, I don't have to waste time learning how to code a product. We all have our strengths, and by making the team, the founders team, that way, we are covered and we are set up for.
I think you got cut off for a second there, Pedro.
Sorry, I just said we're set up for success.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I was skipping ahead a little bit, but I think, mentioning the founders was definitely, I think, the cornerstone of what we wanted to do with the company. Is typically what you see in startups, well, not typically, but you see a lot of technical founders that have no idea how to raise money, or that have no clue on how to promote the product. But although they may have a great product, they still lack, that expertise. And I think that was a concern that we had from the beginning. When we put together the founder team, was like, okay, we need to have someone on business, someone on technical, and someone on marketing, so we're covered on all sides. And that was a great point, Pedro. I think next step after that, what we did as well, what I like to say, to this day, our pitch deck still has the first market analysis that we did before we even had an MVP. And the reason for that is because the underlying need or pain sometimes can be completely overstated by who's suffering that pain, or understated as well. So what we wanted to make sure when we did the first market analysis was like, is this something that we feel that is a need, but is not as much as a need as we think it is? Or is this something that we are maybe underplaying and it is much bigger than we thought? And that's why we went ahead, first thing before we even build a product or an MVP, was let's go to the market and see if there is a demand and there's a need. And that is, to this day, part of our pitch deck, because I think it's very important that we started from kind of a data that we gathered from real users. And we can go through on questions on how we did that market research. It was pretty easy, actually. We spent a little bit of money on Google, and I can talk more about that too.
I think it was, yeah. We spent barely anything, and the amount of data we got from both international and US, Canadian, North American markets were very aligned with what we thought. So we had this amazing corroboration of our theses that we could then add to our deck and then pitch to investors, and not come to them as having just a good idea, but as we have a good idea we think is good, at least, but also we've verified it, and at least in some way we have we now have a better basis to kind of start building something here.
Yeah. Do you want to move to the next slide? Yeah, okay, so cool. So first 18 months, what happened? So we did, like I said, marketing, research. The big question is this pain, is this problem something relevant in the marketplace? Is there anyone else already doing this? And would people eventually pay for this in some fashion? That was kind of the first, I guess, question we asked ourselves and some users. The answer was overwhelming yes overall. So we went from, okay, so now we got to build a product. So first thing we did, MVP, obviously, everyone talks about MVPs. And there's different, I guess, concepts out there on what is an MVP and what is not. Typically what happens, and this happened with us, we definitely built something that was more than an MVP at first, because you tend to add stuff, and you're not necessarily 100% certain on what the market is gonna see your product, and you always think the product is underbuilt as well. So you always like to kind of add more stuff. But with that aside, we hired third-party developers. They built an MVP that basically created the connection between two players in a phone, and we tested that with some influencers and with a small audience, a more targeted audience, part of, in a way, the same demographics that we had tested the market analysis that we did before. And our plan was like, okay, if this gets any traction, if people like it, if it is useful for some people, then we move on and we go from MVP to alpha. This is August 2019, right, Pedro? September 2019 or something like that. Yeah. So we moved from September 2019, built an MVP, Android only, and that's the other thing too that we learned very early on, is that you think, when you're not a technical side, you think that building, it's kind of a turnkey. There's turnkey solutions out there, and then you could just build an app and it's automatically on both stores and it's available in the entire world, and you're both on Google Play and App Store, and everyone's happy. And that's just not the reality. And the reality is, although some people are able to code in React Native and use both platforms, there are different bugs and difficulties and things that you face that make it way harder than it seems to be on both platforms. We had to make a decision at first. So our decision was, okay, because our test market is going to be Brazil, let's do Android. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Android is 90% of the market in developing countries. So we're talking about 90% of the phones are Android phones. Samsung leads, but obviously LG, in Asia, you have all those other companies like YA and stuff like that. They're all Android. iOS has a share of about 10%, 10 to 12%, depending on the country. When you move towards North America, that's a little different. It's more 45, 55 kind of split. With that in mind, though, on the revenue end, it is the other way around. Typically, because obviously people that buy iPhones have a higher average income, you would get more revenue potentially from iPhones than Android phones. But because in the beginning, our focus was not monetization. Our focus was basically breadth of users, the amount of users we wanted to capture and test the product. We just went straight for Android at a alpha version. So we released alpha version in end of 2019. Is that correct, Pedro? November, December 19. Yeah. At that point, we maybe had 1,000 downloads. Not even that.
Not even that. And yeah. I think it's important to mention a little bit before that is that while the MVP was being developed and the alpha was being developed, we, at least, and that's one of the things that why I wanted to mention the composition of the founders team first, is because we had Andre working on that, and me and Luis, and there was no company for Luis to manage at that point. It was basically just a couple invoices and wishful thinking. But then me and Luis could sit down and develop a whole marketing strategy on what we were going to do after we have the MVP. And then after we have alpha, what are the games that we want to support? What should we do? Should we start with lots of games or less games in the more technical product? And that's something Andre, our technical partner, would not be able to do because he was so involved with developing the product, right? And by knowing that beforehand, we could anticipate and develop so much material and so much and a lot of things before we even had a product. So as I mentioned here, all of our social media was created in 2019. And we could spend hours here talking just about the power of social media, but by having that so early, months before we even had a product available to the public, we were already posting gaming related things and interacting with people and letting people know we existed. And that's something that's so often, again, overlooked by technical founders who don't have anyone to focus on marketing early on. And then after that, after we released our alpha, on Q4 2019, we started shooting several ad campaigns we know were going to be useful once we released. So we're gonna show you a couple of them in a second, but it really it takes time to create, shoot, edit, get a campaign ready. It takes months, and so by doing that even before the product was ready, just by knowing what was going to be in the product, we were able to, as soon as we had the product ready, hit the ground running and gather a lot of users very quickly.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point, Pedro. Obviously, I'm talking about the developing stage here, but in parallel, in tandem, we were continue to work on the marketing strategy, and I think that was a big upper hand for sure because we could focus on that. There is a question here in Q&A, so I'm going to take that question now because like the presentation is not mostly focused on the product. We can show a little bit of the product in the end. But Pedro, do you want to take that question maybe? How's Sherwa different from
sure.
Discord?
Shelly, sorry if I'm not saying your name correctly, but is asking what makes Sherwa different from Discord, and that's a great question. Discord is a VoIP platform, so it's basically is a communication tool. It works really well to communicate. It has millions and millions of users. It's a tool that I've used every single day of my life for the past 4 to 5 years. So it's not what we're doing. Discord has communities built within the app. It's very segregated into all those servers. What we are doing is we are offering a user someone for him to play games with right at that moment, in a very active way. I know we didn't go through the product. It's more about strategy, but well, on Discord, if you want to find someone to play, you got to find a community of those people. You got to say, post a message, hey guys, anyone wants to play with me, and wait for someone to reply, add them, and go from there. On Sherwa, you just hit a button, say, I want to play Counter-Strike or I want to play Fortnite right now. And we say, hey, this is someone else who's going to play with you right now. Basically, that's how we organize. That's the main difference. They are mainly a communication tool with some community aspects. We are a matchmaking tool with a huge community aspect to it.
Yeah, and that's a great segue actually to talk about what is to come, because as Pedro mentioned, we started planning a bunch of stuff. We want to pause that for a second. We started planning a bunch of stuff like video campaigns and stuff that we wanted to release once we had the product out. And there's always obviously an anxiety, like, should we release this campaign right before the product's out, when the product's out, or afterwards? Do we wait? So that was the first kind of discussion we had. I think you're gonna see these videos, and I personally find they're very well produced. And if I tell you like how much money we spent on it, you're probably not gonna believe. And the reality is, I think the main, if you want to get one thing from this presentation, what I usually tell other early founders is that startups is guerrilla, right? I mean, you have to get all the resources you have at hand, friends, family, acquaintances, connections, and you utilize that in your favor so you can start promoting your product. So in our case, we were lucky enough to have a good friend who's a great video producer, who has his own production company, and who wanted to help us and get a few shares in the beginning in exchange for a video campaign. So that's what we did. And we don't regret. I think actually the other way around, right? I think as you see, this is the first video we ever shot. This is probably before we even haven't had a product, and we wanted to create something. I guess you see it yourselves. Oh, I don't think there's audio, right?
Should be, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's audio. Yeah, I don't think there's audio, Pedro.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. So we tested it out on not on Zoom, and audio was fine, but here.
I think if you reshare, when you're sharing, if you reshare, there's an option there saying optimized for video play. You can click on that. You want to share again?
Yeah.
Because if there's no audio, I think it kind of loses the purpose.
1 second, guys. Sorry. Share sound. That was probably what I should have done.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try it again.
We're looking for the princess. Oh wait, oh shit, we're looking for Guy.
Give me some password.
Password.
This is 5. What is this? 3.
So this was our website. This was the only thing that we had on our website for months before we released. And it's a quick kind of intriguing video that we wanted to create a little bit of hype. So we promoted it, and you would not believe the amount of emails we got asking like, why are you looking for the princess? Who's Guy? What is Sherwa? So that was the question that we kept going. A lot of that back of my mind when we did it goes back to the early Matrix movies when they released that tagline, what is the Matrix? So we felt like, okay, let's maybe do something like that. And that really got us started. That really, in a way, like how many users did you get from that? Probably not a lot. But what it did do was that it got us started in the mindset of doing these kind of things. So, you know, we got a day out here. It was a winter in Vancouver, and we just shot that video. And we're like, cool, like this is fun, and let's put it out there, have fun, see what we get from it. And then once we did it once, we just wanted to do more. So we kept on making them. I don't know, yeah, it was pretty cool. So that was the first thing that we ever shared. The second thing that we produced was a pitch video. So now the pitch video was actually made for a pitch competition here in Vancouver. You're probably all familiar with it, which is the New Ventures BC. So we signed up in 2019 to participate, and they asked for a minute video. Again, talked to my friend who's a video producer. I'm like, let's do a cool pitch video, like something different, not just the typical, the founder looking at the camera and talking. And we came up with this. And again, it doesn't necessarily reflect the amount of users you get, but it's also the hype and the vibe that you start creating within the culture of the company. So it's a very quick one, this one. Yeah.
What do you know about video games?
700 million players, $130 billion market. Less than 1% of users make any money out of it. Can you believe this? Why are sharing economy apps like Uber, Airbnb, and DoorDash so successful?
On one side, someone provides a service with resources it owns, like a car. On the other side, someone demands that service. Got it?
How could we use the sharing economy business model to leverage from an incredible market like this one? What if you get paid to play? Or play with the best in the world? Or even learn from them?
What if there was an app that could do all that?
Services provided are coaching, power leveling, and play with a pro.
30% of revenue from ads, 50% from profit sharing, and the rest from subscriptions and partnerships.
Sherwa is a new way for players to connect, learn new skills, and make money while having fun. If you need help, we can take you there.
So what do you know about video games?
Yeah, so that video was really what got us started into making short and informative, I would say, videos. This was specifically for a competition. And then with that same kind of idea in mind and same vibe. And by the way, no animals were harmed on that video. My dog is alive and well here. He ate ice cream, but it was dog friendly ice cream, so don't worry about that. So I don't know, Pedro, do you want to make any after comments on this before we move on?
No, I think that's it, and I think if you guys notice, the pitch is a little bit different from what we told you what we do, and that's part of it, right? That's what we thought our product was going to be before we had anything. So it's we're gonna get to what we change and how we change it, but it was really cool. And do you know what the result of that competition was, Luis?
Are you asking me, or is this a rhetorical question?
No, I'm asking you.
No. So we went through the first phase with the video. The video was very successful throughout the competition. And then in the end, what ended up happening was that we didn't have a product. We had a great video. The product was still being, I guess, in the drawing board, and we were still being produced. So we didn't advance to the last stage. But that was, yeah. But the good thing about it, and that's what I tell usually founders as well, is, these competitions, they're not necessarily made for you to win. I mean, yes, it's great if you win, but in a way, it kind of pushes you towards like, okay, I got to do this. I got to build this business plan. I got to put it on paper. We got to do this video, and the product needs to be at a certain stage. And so it usually accelerates things, and it helps you focus too. So that was I found it was a great way to keep focused, especially because COVID had just started, right?
Yeah, and nothing is wasted as well, right? Because the point I was going to get is, regardless of what happened with that competition, we used that video, and we sent that video as a follow-up to every single other potential investor we met over the following 4 or 5 months. So that was a very fun and quirky video that worked really well in the competition. We didn't get it, we didn't win, but we used that. We kept using that video pitch as a follow-up to every single investor, and it got a lot of attention. Got us a lot of attention of those guys.
Yeah, it got us through some doors. You're absolutely right. And so I think, so when we released that, there was no product. Then at least there was an early product. So we went from alpha to beta in maybe 6 months. Midst of which we had COVID, 2020. Obviously, people started working from home. We already had, anyway, a hybrid kind of system because we have developers all over the globe. So it didn't really impact us as much from the developing side. I mean, of course, there's always, everyone went through it. I don't have to explain what it was, but in a way, it did get in the way of the team here in Vancouver because we were very tight and together and building something. All of a sudden, everyone's home. So maybe we got, a month or two delayed. But once we released the beta product, then real marketing started, right? So now we have to run YouTube video campaigns. We have to run Facebook campaigns. We have to actually capture users. At that point, maybe we didn't have 5,000 downloads. We were growing maybe 1,000 downloads a month, although we were available all over the globe. But you just put your app in the store, doesn't do anything, right? So Pedro, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Our strategy was, let's have our alpha version available all over the world and see what happens. And obviously nothing happened. We were doing some small stuff to kind of test it out, but it was a good strategy because it got us some very key early feedback on our alpha version. We did some tests, we did some small events, but we could start preparing for when the beta came out, because we had discussions, it's going to be an open beta, closed beta, what we're going to do, and we decided, let's do an open beta, release it, and then we're going to make some noise after we release the product in beta. So all those videos that you saw were shot really early on. I'm going to show you one more that was shot during that time, and that was released only almost a year later, which was when we released in beta. Because all the time we spent in alpha was spent preparing to what was going to come. And we had an idea, we had a plan. Let's gather 50,000 downloads by the end of 2020. We're going to release in August, so there's 5 months that we can work with. Let's get 10,000 downloads a month. We can use those early users to kind of test it out and test out the product, gather feedback, iterate, and then in 2021 we can release a better version of it, and then we start scaling. So that was the plan. And as soon as we released our beta, this was one of the first videos we started doing some ad campaigns on, and I'll show it to you guys.
Qual é o macete para passar dessa fase? Achei.
Bicho, saca essa manha que eu achei. Ó, cima, cima, baixo, baixo, esquerda, esquerda, direita, direita, BA.
Alô, da Nintendo. Como é que eu passo da fase nova? Valeu, obrigado!
Achei. Vai. Tá, como é que funciona essa habilidade aqui? Qual personagem que eu escolho? Vamos. Boa!
Vamos lá?
So yeah, this was this was the first video we shot, again, a year before. As soon as we released in beta in August 2020, we put that out there with a couple other videos we made. On those videos, you're probably not going to know them, but those are all well-known influencers in the market of several different sizes. And again, going back to what we mentioned, which is leveraging those connections and all the competitive advantages you have to kind of make sure you are set up for success. And you may say, oh, but I don't know any influencers, it's not really my thing. Well, find someone who does, that can help you if that's how you think your product is going to be better received, right? It was what Luis and Andre did with me. They came to me to kind of help on that area. I happen to know a lot of those guys, and we did that video. It was very successul. We released in beta with a product that was a little bit more complete, but still very first versions of everything we wanted to do. And as I mentioned, our initial plan was to release in Brazil, gather those 50,000 downloads by the end of 2020, test out, iterate, and we got 25,000 downloads in August alone. And we said, okay, that's a lot more than we expected, but that's fine. We can work through it. And we got almost 40,000 in September. And I said, okay, it's starting to get a lot of people. We're starting getting crashes, and we did not expect all this feedback and people sending emails and reaching out to us. And we got 64,000 in October. And so things escalated really quickly from that, because we had all that material set up, and we had everything planned, and our plan worked way better than we expected. And then we had to just roll with it. By the end of, December 2020, should be 2020 there. By December 2020,
yeah, it's 2020 there.
Yeah, sorry about that. We had reached 250,000 downloads, which was 5 times more than we expected. And with that, generated a whole bunch of problems that we had to address that we were not expecting. And Luis, you wanna touch on that?
No, yeah, and that's something I want to say as well. Though that last video you guys saw, it was shot merely days before everything closed down for COVID. Yeah. So this was shot in Brazil in March 10th, if I'm not mistaken. I flew back, or March 5th, something like that, and we flew back to Vancouver, I think March 10th or 12th, and then everything shut down. So obviously we were lucky in a way that we were able to get that out of the way and shoot the video. But with COVID, we didn't necessarily stop us. I think we can show you some stuff that we did afterwards, but it definitely was a time that we had to kind of rethink the strategy. Like we obviously have this big upper hand with influencers, like Pedro said, but we could not use them in presence anymore. So we had to do virtual events, so we had to do a bunch of other stuff that were not necessarily in our map at that point. But it's just how we adapted. So
but it goes back to planning, right? Because we had all that material, all those videos ready, we could still use them, even though some of the things we planned, like release events and all those things that are very eye-catching and would be really good for us, even though those we could not do because of COVID, because we had a lot of stuff already planned and ready to go, those were able to go through fairly easily. And if we had waited until April to start thinking about our campaign for August, we would have nothing, basically. It would be a very different, very different release for sure.
Yeah, and something we experienced, I think, the growth we had in those early months was so overwhelming in a way, because obviously at that point we were still a team of 5, and just issues with the servers and issues with bugs, stability, crashes, and a variety of other things that we didn't expect to face at that point. And I think something that we definitely learned, our experience was that you're never ready for the growth that you want to have. And that's just normal. I think that is part of the game, right? What you have to be ready for is how you adapt and pivot once you get that growth. And the other thing that I definitely have as a lesson learned is you have influencers in a video that is well produced, people will click on it and download the product. So be ready for that. And then that's something that if you can take one thing from this, is that find someone who can give you an upper hand with influencers, and the right influencers, obviously, someone who understands the market and can put your product in the right hands, and you will get the downloads. Problem is afterwards, how do you need a good product so people stay and continue to come back. That's maybe my main takeaway here, and we can kind of skip through a little bit, Pedro, just because we're mindful of time. Yeah,
I just want to touch really quickly here, is because then we had an expanding user base overwhelming us. We had our initial team of 4 developers working on the product. So we had to expand the team and start gathering feedback. And that's where having those users really helps, because what we saw is that by the end of 2020, we had 700,000 quick match requests, 30,000 parties created, but we only had a few hundred coaching requests or connection requests for paid connection for learning. Only a dozen went through payment, so we had a lot of friction there. What we realized was we created a very cool way for people to connect. So let's focus on that, because that's what the users want, and that's what we're doing well right now. And that's when, at the beginning of 2021, we pivoted a little bit from an app to connect you to improve, to an app just to give you someone to play. That's where we're seeing a lot of success.
Yeah, I think what we realized as well as we got, the idea was always get users, learn from them, make mistakes, iterate, and then release a new product. We were not expecting to iterate with as many users. So that obviously presented a lot of challenges. I think we're going to go through some of them here. But as Pedro said, one of the things that I'm grateful is that early on, that amount of users did give us one thing, which is the hint of what is working on the app and what is not working on the app. Something we learned really fast as well is that just because people are not requesting this one service, it does not mean they don't want it. It probably can mean that the product is not optimized for that, meaning the product flow and the way you're presenting it to users and the amount of friction you have is just blocking them from, in the end, demanding the service that the research in the very beginning of this journey showed us that they wanted. And that's one of the reasons why we decided to shelve, I guess, one of the pillars of the app. It wasn't a complete dump. We were just shelving it because we felt, okay, there's 350,000 people wanting to find meaningful connections online. Let's work that out. Let's build that community. Let's have that retain them. And then we can come back and start presenting something else that that we thought in the beginning may work, but it didn't, just because we were not ready for that. So obviously, a lot of challenges. Dealing with unforeseen growth is crazy, absolutely crazy, especially when you don't have money. Sorting through user feedback, like we have a bunch of channels like Instagram, Discord, contact email, blog. There's a lot of channels where people can communicate. One of the main ones as well that people tend to forget, that I always tell people to focus, is the reviews that you get on both App Store and Google Play, because you might get an email from a user saying this didn't work. You're the only one seeing that email. Now, a review on Google Play or App Store, everyone sees it. So you better get there and respond and deal with it. Otherwise, you're not going to get. And I think that goes back to why we have great reviews overall, is because we make certain that we respond to each one of them. Now, growing the team was another challenge, obviously, with that kind of growth. Hiring, COVID. We couldn't really meet people for interviews. It's all online, all through. So we had to deal with that. And keeping the team focused on working together, obviously, it's another challenge. And it still is, right, Pedro?
Yeah, it's a challenge that ongoing, and a challenge that only grows as the team grows, because you have more people working on different things and all remotely right now. So it's very hard to make sure you maintain a good morale and everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody knows what everyone else is doing. So you can have that cross pollination there between teams. So it was a big challenge.
Especially like company culture, right? I mean, those first 24 months, you're really building the company culture. And then all of a sudden, there's no more happy hour. There's no more lunch break. There's no more like nothing. You just, Zoom call after Zoom call, and then Slack, and it's tough. Established companies have issues with that. Imagine a startup growing 10, 20 times in a matter of months. So I think I would say the biggest challenge is definitely creating and keeping company culture. You want to go through main achievements there?
Yeah, so let's just hit really quickly. I know we talked a lot about them, but we were able to iterate the product quickly to respond to user feedback. And that's something that we really learned, is that doesn't matter how quickly you respond, at the moment is always going to feel like you're taking too long to do something. And that's something that I struggled with quite a lot at the beginning. I was like, oh my God, we're wasting so much time. It's been a month, we haven't improved and whatnot. And now I look to our product today and what it was a year from now, which is a very short period of time. And it's so different, so different. It hasn't even been a year yet, and it's completely different. We improved so much. So making sure not to put not to put too much pressure on the team that is improving the product, because you feel it has to go quickly, because it's probably being done as quickly as possible, and you're going to be surprised afterwards on how quickly it went. Having great communication with our users was a really big achievement. Because we had that team separated, we had people looking through feedback, sorting it out, being able to respond to everybody and making them feel welcome was really good. And then understanding how the world situation affected our market, right? We had suddenly a boom in gaming. People at home, so they couldn't meet with their friends. So our platform came at a time where we could help those people find people to play and make new friends. So that was really good, and being able to understand how the situation of the world impacts your specific industry, and how you will need to change to make it work is always very very important. And I think we were able to do that quite well. And then implementing all the marketing campaigns to acquire users, gather feedback. It's tough. As I mentioned, we had a lot of stuff ready, which was really good. But after that, what can we do, right? We still have to do other stuff while COVID is happening. So we can't shoot ads. We have to do different things and be able to do that, to get to the 500,000 downloads we got to. I think it was a very big achievement for us.
Yeah. So what's next? So we continue to work on the product, V2, and guys, working on the product is continue to work on the product is the norm. You're always going to be working on the product. You're always going to be, as CEO, CMO, partner, you're always going to be maybe a little unsatisfied with the way the product is right now, and always looking forward to the next version. That is just normal. Like Pedro said, I think he put it very well. He said, like, you always think things are late, but the reality is you have to be careful not to take your anxiety and transport that towards the culture of the team, because now not only they have to deal with the bugs and codes, but they also have to deal with your anxiety, right? So, or the CEO or the CMO's anxiety. So you got to be careful with that. And sometimes we are very successful in doing that. Sometimes we fail, and that's just how it is. But continue to work on the product. We're launching V2. We just launched V2 of the quick match feature about a couple weeks ago. And after hearing a lot of user feedback and doing an extensive user research, obviously we have a bigger team right now. It's still not huge, but it's bigger than when we were kind of scrambling a few months ago, 6 months ago, and that allowed us to go back to the users, understand what they want, and understand what they were doing, make and learn from those mistakes. And as I said in the beginning, used Brazil as a test market for number one. Brazil is the third largest country in terms of gamers. People are very, highly demanding in terms of quality, and we had a great upper hand. So use that upper hand anytime you can. And now, as we acquire users basically for free or very cheap in Brazil because we used everything we could, we're going to continue to grow there. But also now that we have a more iterated product, we are going to start advancing towards the North American market. That is the plan going forward for 2021. That is us. So our objective is to replicate, and objective and challenge, which is to replicate what we did in Brazil now in developed markets. Yep, that's all from me. Pedro, do you want to maybe conclude?
Yeah, and just to quickly conclude here, and what really worked for us to get where we are, we're planning, organization, and pressing your competitive advantage. And you might think the planning and organization are the same thing. They're similar, but they're more complementary than the same thing. You can have the best plan in the world. If you're not ready to implement it and organize to implement it on the fly, it doesn't mean anything. So be able to plan for all the scenarios and then be organized to be able to activate those plans as quickly as possible as they become needed is super important. And then pressing your competitive advantage of, in our case, was our context in the industry, the fact that we knew the Brazilian market so well, being able to use that market that's very cheap to acquire users to iterate and test the product. And we pressed that really hard, and we got to a really good place where we are, thankfully. But that may not be your competitive advantage. You need to understand what that is and focus on that and make sure you explore that to the best of your ability.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, again, the message we really wanted to say, I guess, convey here with this presentation was it is doable. Sometimes it's hard, but sometimes it happens, and there's always a reason. And I think Pedro listed the three main reasons for us. It may be three different reasons for you, but you never lose by planning, organizing, and using your competitive advantage. It's, again, use that word guerrilla all the time, because take what you can from friends, and that's I'm saying use it and give something back. Obviously, we gave shares, we gave a bunch of stuff, but utilize your network as much as you can. And if you don't have a network, bring someone that does. As a co-founder, I'm going to have to give up 10% or 15% of my company. Well, that's just the price of success, right? And I think we did that quite well. And with that, I will finish my presentation. And Nick, maybe, I don't know if there's questions or, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. We do have one question on Whova, it looks like. So I will just, oh no, sorry, we have two now. So the first question here is, when considering the customer acquisition costs in developed versus developing markets, what were your major costs? Google AdWords, social media ads. I think you kind of answered this with influencers, but anything additionally?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think Pedro can comment on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. We we can definitely open that. Our cost per acquisition, our customer acquisition cost in Brazil, for example, is about 4 times less than the market benchmark for us, because we developed that strategy. And I'm using that instead of just giving you a number, because it makes more sense to think that way. Because we press our competitive advantage with influencers, we're able to reduce our marketing costs quite a lot in the market.
Yeah, so the 2 main ways we promoted product was YouTube ads and through Google app campaigns, and also through events. So you would go like an influencer streaming, and he'll be using the app and talking to the audience. Those are the 2 main ways that we did that.
Yeah.
And we were able to keep our costs pretty low. Yeah.
Awesome. Next question we have here. On the Google Play Store, I see the leading paragraph for Sherwa is about teaching others and making money from that. Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that was no longer the prime focus.
If that is the case, then we have to make a change there.
That's part of what it is, right? You change it on everyone else, and there's still places where people, oh, wait, but what is this? So
thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know. We'll change that.
Yeah, I guess sometimes things just get missed. But
yeah, that's right. Yeah. And again, that's the other thing too, right? Because part of the team is doing one thing, and then obviously, we're not the ones uploading the latest build to the App Store, and that's when you make a change on that description. And obviously, for some reason, we missed that, and that just happens, right? So we have to definitely address that. Thanks for letting us know.
Thanks. Just want to say personally, I found this an incredibly insightful panel to see like all the marketing and the early stages that you went through with the app. I thought it's awesome the strategy you guys went forward with moving into Brazil at the start, and I guess currently it just seems like such a great idea that you've found this market that works so well with, like you'd said, like 3rd largest market in the world for gamers that's kind of underutilized, and you already had these connections there. So I'm really glad that strategy's been working for you. I think that's very well executed.
Yeah, and I think thanks for that, Nick. And I think that is the message we want to convey here. Forget everything we said and like utilize the strengths you have at the places you can, where you can get the best bang for the buck. Make those mistakes there, then you go somewhere else, right? Where you can maybe make more money. Otherwise, you might die, not because your idea is not good, but just because you didn't have the resources, right? So
totally.
that's yeah.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people will tend to try to go for the biggest or all the markets at once and then end up.
Or just, let's go US, which is very competitive, but also there's a lot of money, but it's expensive, right? I mean, and then you need to raise millions of dollars, and then you're just going through all this kind of scramble to, how did you come up with the name Sherwa? There's a question here. So Sherwa is an alternate Nepalese for Sherpa, which obviously Sherpa, the people in Nepal who help you climb the Mount Everest or any other mountain in the Himalayas. So that is the concept. I'm a climber as well. On the personal side, I'm a rock climber. So
wow.
I guess I like climbing. So that's why too.
Indoors or?
Outdoor, mostly outdoors.
Outdoor mostly, yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I boulder sometimes.
Oh, cool. So, we should do that sometime when it's open again.
Connect with me on LinkedIn. Sorry about.
Oh, again.
Yes. How can
you feel free to connect with me and Pedro on LinkedIn. We're both on LinkedIn. Luis Persicini and Pedro Vasconcelos. Also, our emails are Luis with a Z or Pedro at sherwaonline.com. Happy to connect, exchange, go for coffee when we can. Vancouver, there's a reopening plan right now. I just got my shot yesterday, so hopefully soon enough we'll be able to move about and meet again.